Welcome back everyone to another Q&A. Let's go over our first question here. So the question is the wrist position when it comes to the bench press. What kind of wrist position do we need to use for the bench press in order to be very efficient and maximize force transfer in the bar and minimize injuries at the wrist or anything around the wrist? So I have here just a dumbbell as an example of the barbell. And what we want to do is go over our wrist position here. We want to keep a neutral wrist as a standard when it comes to the bench press. The reason for this neutral position is that we can then get the barbell, okay, if we're looking down the end of the barbell, we can get the barbell aligned with the wrist joint and then ideally also aligned with the elbow joint so that we get a straight line. So if we were looking at the bench from the side view, and looking down from the bar in the top position and the bottom position and in between, we want to see that stacking of the barbell, the wrist, and the elbow. Okay, this is a good starting position. So how can we achieve this? One, it's going to be the position of the bar in the hand. So we want it deep in the palm, down here, so we can get it over the wrist joint, versus here's an extreme example where I have it up in the fingers, and now we have this distance here between the bar and the wrist. We don't want to create this horizontal distance between the bar and the wrist because that's creating a new moment arm that's going to be causing strain here at the wrist joint and the muscle surrounding it. And also now our force transfer won't be as efficient. We're going to lose some position where maybe the wrist is going to move, maybe the bar is going to move, everything like that. So we want to get the bar deep in the hand so that we can properly stack it over the wrist joint. The other thing is going to be for a neutral wrist, we don't actually want to see the back of our arm here being straight from the elbow through the forearm and into the hand. So some people overdo it and think, oh, well, I need a neutral wrist, and so I'm going to kind of like straighten my hand here. This is not actually neutral. If we have our hand like this open and all we do is close our hand, you're going to see because we're making a fist with our hand, there's going to be this backward angle here from the wrist going to the hand. So it's not actually straight like this that we want to be in. We're actually going to have a neutral wrist here. So one way you can do it for yourself, just like I did, just have your hand open. My wrist is neutral right now. I'm not like this. I'm not like this. I'm just neutral. And then from here, all I'm doing is closing my hand and making a fist, and that's going to have that angle there. So we do have a little bit of an angle going this way, which is going to be our neutral wrist position. So then all we do is if we're grabbing the bar, again, we can have our hand open underneath the bar and let the bar roll down deep into the palm of our hand. And then from all we do from there is close our hand. And now you can see we have this little bit of backward angle, but that's going to be the neutral wrist position for me. And then we have the bar stacked over the wrist and stacked over the elbow. So we don't want to be here and we don't want to be here. We want to be here. Our second question, we're going to continue to stay with the bench press, is that should we arch when it comes to the bench press? Is arching going to be safe for us when it comes to the bench press? And is arching going to improve our strength and size when it comes to the bench press? As a general answer for everyone is yes, you do want to arch when it comes to the bench press. It just depends on how much you're able to arch and how much you should arch depending on the person. So it depends on your goals. If you're doing the competition lift or a variation, if you deal with any pain or anything like that when you are trying to arch a maximum amount, those kind of things. But in general, we do want to use the arch for our bench press because it's going to put our shoulders in a safer position, and it could put our pecs in a more efficient position to use our pecs more in the bench press. So arching is not necessarily bad for you. By arching and extending the spine, you're going to be putting the spine actually in compression, and your spine is very good at compression. Think about it like a cinder block for like a home. They are very good at compression. They are not as good for tension. So same thing with your spine. Your spine can handle a lot of compression, a lot of load. Think about if you're doing like a squat or deadlift, how much compression's in your spine, but it may not be as good at tension or pulling, okay? So when we are arching, we're converting the force into tension throughout the body. Think of it like a bridge or an arch, okay? The bridge is gonna be very supportive in this position to handle cars and things coming across it. So we do want to arch. It's going to be safe for you. It just depends on how much you're able to arch based on the size of your body, your flexibility, everything like that, and then how much you want to arch. If you want to go with the maximum amount of arch to try and minimize your range of motion as possible so you can maximize your strength, or maybe going with a more moderate arch, getting the shoulder blades back to continue to put our shoulders in a safe position so that we can do maybe more bench for endurance or for size while not injuring ourselves. So yes, we do want to arch. Arching is not bad for you. You have to figure out how much arching you can do and what kind of arch you can set your body up with to not have any pain. Oftentimes that comes with bracing. So if we are bracing our core for squeezing our glutes, that's going to help protect our spine. If we're very relaxed in our glutes, very relaxed in our bracing, then we are relaxed and we're relying maybe more on the spine, and that can maybe cause some pain for some people. So please don't see arching as a bad thing. See arching as a good thing. It's going to help keep your shoulders and other muscles in a safe position. It's going to help you lift more weight. It's also going to stretch the pecs more, especially in that bottom position, to allow you to target the pecs more for size and strength. So lots of benefits to arching, and you don't have to worry about some people saying that arching is cheating or bad for your back or anything like that. None of that's true. Our third question is regarding maxing out and how often should we max out. So if we think about in a year, how often should a lifter max out in order to continue to track their progress and maximize their gains while minimizing fatigue and maybe even injury? So obviously this depends from person to person based on their goals as far as what kind of competitions they have throughout the year. So if we're talking about a true 1-rep max, whether it's in the competition or the gym, we want to keep that to a few times throughout the year because it's going to be very stressful on the body, okay? So it's going to be stressful on the body physically and mentally, so on the muscles, the joints, the ligaments, but also just on your nervous system. And so we don't want to be doing that maybe every week or every month, okay? We want to keep that to maybe, let's say, 3 to 6 times throughout the year, depending on how many competitions you're doing, and then if you're doing any gym tests. So you may do, let's say, 2 to 4 competitions throughout the year, and then in between those, maybe you want to do like an end of the year test or something like that as well. So you're going to then be doing maybe 2 to 5 or 6 times throughout the year. You can use other tests instead to continue to track your progress, so you don't have to rely on a true 1-rep max to track your progress, especially when you're training at different intensity. So if we are training maybe in a block 70 to 80% intensity, really building up muscle mass, really working on technique, really working on work capacity, we don't want to then jump at the end of the block from 80% to try and do 100% or test our max. It's not going to work out very well because we haven't prepared our body for that max testing. So we may underperform, we may fail a lift, and then be sad about, not making any progress. We may get injured, stuff like that. So you want to avoid setting ourselves up for failure that way. If we're training 70, 80%, maybe then we do some kind of test at 80%. Maybe we do like a heavy set of 5 and see what the RP is. Maybe we do an AMRAP set and we see if we can get 8 or 10 reps with 80% and use that as a guide to see our progress. So there are other ways that we can track our progress that are going to be more successful for us in being able to complete the test properly, minimize injury risk, be able to get a data point on what's working and what's not working, and then make adjustments to our training going forward. We don't have to rely on the 1-rep max test where your body may not be prepared for it. We may fail lifts, we may get injured. And then also, if you're gonna peak into it to prepare your body for that 1-rep max test, then you're spending more time peaking than deloading or tapering into the test, and then maybe deloading after the test so that you can then get back to training. So we're losing more time to do this test leading up and afterwards. And if we're doing this, 10, 12 times throughout the year, then we're losing out on those weeks of training where we could be spending that time training and getting bigger and stronger, and then doing the test fewer times throughout the year. Our next question is regarding the best shoes for deadlift. So what type of shoe should we wear for the deadlift, whether it's conventional or sumo, in order to maximize our efficiency, force into the ground, minimize our range of motion, be able to lift the most amount of weight possible? So in general, when it comes to deadlift, we want a shoe that has a very thin and hard sole. We want it to basically be as close to barefoot as possible so we can transfer force down into the ground as efficient as possible. If we're wearing a squishy shoe, like a running or cross-training shoe, then we are not efficiently pushing the force down into the ground, because some of the force that we're pushing into the shoe is going to cause the shoe to deform. So we're losing some force into the deformation of the shoe. In addition, that deformation in the shoe may cause us to lose our balance forward or backward because now the shoe is wobbling on us, okay? So it's like we're deadlifting on a Bosu ball or trying to sprint on the beach where the sand is moving. It's not as efficient force transfer. So we want something very thin sole and very hard. Being very hard will allow for that efficient transfer of you pushing into the shoe and pushing down into the ground. And then it being very thin soled means you're as close to the ground as possible, as close to barefoot as possible, to shorten the range of motion as much as possible, okay? If we are in a thick shoe, then think of it as like you're doing a deficit deadlift. You're standing on like a 2-inch or 4-inch block. You have to bend down more to grab the bar, and you have to pull the bar a longer distance, and the vast majority of people are weaker in a deficit deadlift compared to a standard deadlift. So we want to get the thin-soled shoe to minimize that deficit basically and be deadlifting from the ground. Now, if you are deadlifting conventional, you may not need to worry as much about a grippy shoe because you're pushing straight down into the ground, so you're not going to worry about slip or anything like that. But if you are a sumo deadlifter and you have your feet out wider, now we have this lateral or horizontal force as well that we're pushing to the sides. So in that case, we want to also look for a shoe that grips very well to the ground so we don't slip as we are doing our sumo deadlift. You may also want a shoe that has some kind of lateral support to it, so we're not like rolling our shoe over. So these are the things that you want to look into. You want a thin-soled shoe that's very hard so we can minimize the range of motion and transfer force very well down into the ground. Then if we are a sumo deadlifter, we also want to look into the grip aspect and then any kind of lateral support. And then from there, you may have some things that you want for yourself. If you maybe need more arch support, depending on your foot, maybe you want to look into a shoe with more arch support. But in general, these are the things you want to look for to maximize the efficiency of our deadlift and be able to lift the most amount of weight possible. Staying with the deadlift, our next question is going to be regarding doing a full reset between reps on our deadlift versus doing like a touch and go or tap and go deadlift. So what's the best when it comes to deadlift reps? Should we keep constant tension and do a touch and go, or should we be doing a reset? So there's going to be pros and cons to each one. So it depends on what your specific goal is when it comes to deadlift, or if you have different goals for deadlift, what is the primary goal for that session so you can design your deadlift protocol around that primary goal. For example, if we want to be practicing our competition lift and improving our technique and improving our starting position, then we want to do a reset. When we do a rep and we come down to the ground, we want to stop. We want to make sure we're back in our proper starting position. We want to take a new breath of air. We want to brace and then take a new rep from that dead stop position. This is going to allow you to practice your starting position again as best as you can in a multi-rep set. And also it's going to take away some of the stored energy from the descent of the first rep that may help you with the ascent of the second rep. So sometimes when people maintain that tension or even do like a touch and go rep, the first rep may be challenging, and then the second and third reps are easier than the first rep because they are storing energy coming down after they do the first rep to help with the second and third, whereas in the first rep of your set, you're pulling from a dead stop. So if you're focusing on technique, if you're focusing on trying to get your competition practice, then we want to do the reset so we can try and get basically as many first rep practices as possible. On the flip side, if you're someone who maybe wants to work on constant tension and time under tension and maybe like a certain type of technique where you want to learn your position very well and you're not good at knowing your starting position, then sometimes doing a light touch and go and not completely relaxing can help with that. So now when you finish your first rep, you can control the weight down because you're going to be stronger in the descent or the eccentric position. And then from there, you come and you do a light touch, you maintain your brace, you maintain your position. So now you're in a good starting position and you can go do your second rep. And then you hold that tension, control it down, bring it down to you touch just barely for your third rep, and then go for your third rep. So there can be some benefits to this. If you are someone who wants to work on your technique that way to find the right starting position by bringing it from the top down, it can maybe even work for longer time under tension for grip so that you aren't letting go and then grabbing again each time. You have to squeeze and hold on for an entire set. But in general, most people are going to benefit from the reset because you are getting the benefit of trying to get more first rep practice, of being able to get in the proper starting position, brace properly, pull the slack out, execute the rep. bring it down, do a reset to take away the stored energy. So you have to pull the second rep from a dead stop and be able to get back in your same starting position. In addition, this helps too, if you kind of fall out of position on your first rep, then you can do a reset and come back and execute your second rep right. If you do the touch and go or really push it into like bouncing, then if you fall out of position, your first rep is just going to get worse for second, third, and fourth rep. So you want to be careful when it comes to not doing the reset. And if you're going to do some kind of touch and go, you want to make it a light touch, or even coming and stopping but maintaining your tension and bracing, versus doing like bouncing or slamming reps that are going to just throw you out of position. It may hurt your arms, it may even hurt your back, and also you're not getting as much strength built in the bottom position because you're basically using that momentum to get you out of that bottom position. So you're never getting strong in that bottom position, and that may lead to a weakness then when it comes to 1 rep max testing. And if you want to see me break down more information regarding the best shoes for deadlift, you can watch this video next.